We're in the end game now. Bananza's release is imminent. We're so close to that brand new Donkey Kong game.
I can almost taste it.
And I couldn't be any more excited. The speculation for this game has been wild, and I've had a phenomenal time doing it. But we ain't quite done yet. I had mentioned that I would be making a part 2 video with the Journey to the West stuff in my last video that I put out, and I aim to very much make good on that promise in this video. A lot of what we're going to be talking about here is just things that cement the theory. Things that we've seen in the Donkey Kong Direct that was a few weeks ago, and how they really just keep the theory alive. In fact, the more information we got just makes it seem like it's even more legitimate. But I will admit that a large bulk of this discussion is going to be about Void Kong. It is fitting, as this little creep is half the reason why this theory even exists in the first place, and there's just a lot to talk about when it comes to this guy. But before we get into Void Kong, let's talk about some of the other stuff that we know, and how it compares to Mr. Wukong's Wild Ride. So let's start this discussion with the Bananza transformations. This was probably the thing in the Direct that stood out to me the most, because it really gave me that affirmation that the Journey to the West theory could actually be legitimate. Donkey Kong is transforming into animals in this game. And the thing is that one of the most famous aspects of San Wukong the Monkey King is that he can transform into animals. Now, he has 72 transformations in Journey to the West, and to be fair, when I say transformations, that's not a literal thing. His 72 transformations are what they use as kind of a generalization of all of his magical properties or spiritual abilities. He does literally have the ability to transform himself into different things. He can turn into objects, he can turn into animals. So that is a very large aspect of it. But he can do a ton of other things. Way more stuff than what I can even mention in this video. He can turn invisible, he can control like elements, like Avatar The Last Airbender, he can do a whole bunch of crazy shit. And we're not going to get into all that. But one of the most famous and iconic things is obviously the animal transformations. And we can see that Donkey Kong has this very ability. Which, again, this is insane. This is not something that we've seen before from the Donkey Kong series. I mean, we sort of have seen it before. If you played the past games, you know that there are the barrels where you can jump inside and you can become an animal buddy or whatever. But we've never actually seen Donkey Kong on the fly transform into different animals. This is very much a trait that is, again, very closely associated with San Wukong. So, I mean, you couldn't get any more blatant here. I will say that there seems to be also kind of a soft elemental aspect of these transformations, because there's like an aura around each one of them of a different color, and that doesn't necessarily have to do with an element so much. But, I mean, the ostrich can fly, so that's kind of air. Big monkey looks like it's got like red fire going on, and then you got the zebra, which appears to be water, perhaps. So, I mean, that's another thing San Wukong can do, again, with the elements. So, having these elemental animal transformations, yeah, I mean, come on. I even like the detail of the banana hair on the big monkey transformation, because it definitely looks like Dragon Ball Z. You can't tell me that it doesn't. Alright, Super Saiyan Donkey Kong, again, Dragon Ball, Journey to the West. You get where I'm coming from here, okay? It's also fitting that these transformations appear to be taught to him by these elder characters. Again, in Journey to the West, there is an elder who teaches San Wukong his 72 transformations. Think of it in a similar way to Master Roshi in Dragon Ball. This elder's name, who, I'm definitely gonna butcher this shit, Puri Zushi, is a Taoist Buddhist monk who teaches San Wukong, again, his magical abilities. He also helps him become immortal. So you can see that theming here with Bananza, where these elders are teaching Donkey Kong how to use the transformations. Now, as so far, we only know of 3 Bananza transformations, but there is a very real possibility that there could be up to 5. As we can see with the talent point upgrades, there looks to be 2 empty slots next to the Bananza transformations, which would hint to the fact that there is 5 of them. Now, there could very realistically be more, but 5 is somewhat notable because 5 would mean that there are 5 elders. And again, this goes back to Buddhism and Journey to the West, but to a much lighter degree, where there's the 5 elders of the 5 places. Now, they're not a major part of Journey to the West at all, but they are a relatively major part of the overall Chinese Buddhist pantheon of gods and celestials, because they serve as the backdrop to the Journey to the West. And again, in a game that's seemingly using Buddhism and Journey to the West and all this other stuff thrown in there, having 5 elders, which would be a reference to the 5 elders of the 5 places, again, just makes too much sense. Especially when you consider that the 5 elders of the 5 places are essentially gods or godlike beings, and it would definitely seem that these elders in Bananza are kind of in that same sort of position. They are like these godlike elders amongst the animal people here. It's also worth noting that the 5 elders of the 5 places all have a color and an element associated with them. And as I already mentioned earlier, it seems like the animal transformations have a color and possibly an element associated with them as well, which would match up almost perfectly to the 5 elders of the 5 places. Now, admittedly, the colors of the 5 elders in Buddhism do not match with the colors of the elders in Bananza or the animal transformations, but you get the idea. Clearly there's a color associated with them, just like how they are in Buddhism. I mean, the reference is there, even if the colors don't match up perfectly. It's also worth noting that there are 7 sages that also appear in Journey to the West as well, and in truth, we still don't know ultimately how many elders are going to be in Bananza, so it's possible we could have 7 of them, in which case it would be an obvious reference to that as well. If 7 sages sounds even a little bit familiar to you, it's probably because The Legend of Zelda also took from this idea, which is just a great example of how Nintendo has absolutely taken from Journey to the West before in other games. This isn't the first time, okay? This isn't their first rodeo with the Monkey King. But anyway, sages, elders, this stuff is central to Journey to the West and shows up in a ton of Buddhist stories, really closely associated with Buddhism, so all this stuff is matching up pretty damn well. Now, I'm not going to talk about Pauline too much in this video because we've already touched on her in past videos. We know that she's pretty much an allegory for Tan Sen Zhang, and most certainly nothing has changed in that regard at all. But there are a few small things that I would like to add to it. We know that DK's transformations are aided with Pauline singing, and in Journey to the West, Tan Sen Zhang controls Sun Wukong to a degree, with a golden ring that's placed around Sun Wukong's head. Now in the story, this is to keep Sun Wukong under control and stop him from doing bad things, basically keeping him in line. All Tang has to do is chant this particular incantation and it tightens and gives Sun Wukong a headache so it can stop him from being an asshole, basically. Now obviously Pauline isn't doing this literally in Bananza, but in a way, she is singing or chanting and controlling DK's power to a degree by allowing him to transform, so I kind of see it as like a soft reference. There's also the fact that while Sun Wukong is one of the most famous characters from Journey to the West, Tang is for all intents and purposes the central character. He's the one on the journey to the West, he's the one that's responsible for getting the Buddhist scriptures, and he's the one that most of the villains in the story, a lot of the demons and all that stuff, want to eat or kill. Kind of in a similar way to how it seems that Voidco wants Pauline. But here we go, we're finally talking about Void Kong. This little shit has been all over the Donkey Kong discussions for a while now. I'm not going to list every single reason as to why he's the 6-eared macaque. We've already come to this conclusion, and for this theory, that is where we are at. That's the conclusion we've drawn, that he is the 6-eared macaque. In a similar way to Pauline, though, I will add a few things that we know now that definitely kind of reinforce this idea. One of the biggest things is obviously the name. Everybody's talked about it. I talked about it in my last video about how his name doesn't match the naming conventions of other Kongs, which to me means that he could be an imposter. It just adds to his fakeness. Now, something that I've seen a lot of people actually bring up in my comments, as well as comments in other videos that I've seen about this subject, is a lot of people have talked about the Kongs that were in Jungle Beat, because they also don't follow the naming conventions of normal Kongs. And while that is definitely true, their names, at the very least, match up to whatever their theme is. Karate Kong, Dread Kong, he's got dreadlocks. Sumo Kong, he's a big fat sumo wrestler. Void Kong, as far as we can tell, doesn't necessarily have anything void about him on the outside. If you're going to use the Jungle Beat Kongs as a counter-argument to Void Kong, then you have to realize that he needs to follow the same convention that they do then, and he has to have something about him that makes the name Void Kong make sense, which brings us to the same conclusion, that he's a nothing Kong, he's a fake, void, empty, or some kind of doppelganger or whatever. Either way, regardless of however you want to slice it, the name means something, in my opinion. Another thing is that Poppy Kong is referred to as a spy for Voidco. Now, why they would need a spy, I have no idea, but it literally says that she's like an information gatherer. And again, if Void Kong has someone gathering information and serving as his eyes and ears, this matches up with the six-eared macaque. Again, because he said that he has eyes and ears that can hear things and see things all over the place. So, we're fitting the theme here. It's maybe not exactly applied to Void Kong, but since he is the boss, quote unquote, he has someone in service to him that is giving him information. You see where I'm getting at. His motivations for the game, as far as we know, also match up pretty well with the six-eared macaque. In Journey to the West, Mr. Six Ears wants to replace Sun Wukong and Tan Sanzang and basically do the journey himself, getting the Buddhist scriptures and taking them back to Buddha because he wants the fame and the fortune. And as far as we know, Void Kong's motivation is all the riches in the world. Guy just wants the fat stacks, baby. So his motivations aren't even that far off. I don't know how much more we would need to find to match this guy up to the six-eared macaque. At this point, it's all but confirmed in my eyes. So what does that ultimately mean? What does it mean in the grand scheme of things? Like, okay, we've come to the conclusion that this little monkey man is the six-eared macaque. What could that imply for his story? The thing is, the closing to the six-eared macaque story is that he and Sun Wukong battle it out. They're perfect equals. They have all the same abilities. They can use the same transformations. They look the same, so no one can tell them apart. And Sun Wukong's own friends can't help him because they don't know who to fight. It's a classic trope that's appeared in a million different stories. The evil twin and the person doesn't know who to shoot. That's effectively what the story comes down to in Journey to the West. So Buddha shows up and pretty much reveals the macaque for who he is, in which then he's then killed. But that is ultimately the grand ending to the six-eared macaque. He's proven to be a fake and he's killed. Is Bananza going to follow that to a T? I have no clue, but I would like to think that that same story beat will be copied in Bananza in some way. To me, ultimately it makes sense that there has to be a point for Void Kong's story where he's shown to be a faker. The dude is ousted for whatever. Whether it be he's not the true leader of Voidco, or he's somebody in disguise, or whatever. There has to be something that's going to happen to him to show that he's a fake. One of the possible identities for Void Kong that were thrown around was King K. Rool, obviously. I mean, a lot of me and my fellow Kong compatriots would like to see K. Rool in the game, so it's inevitable that he's going to come up in the discussion. Now, personally, I don't necessarily believe that Void Kong is literally King K. Rool in disguise. However, I will say this in defense of that theory. In a game where transformations are such a big theme, again, which makes sense because transformations are a big thing in Journey to the West, quite a few of the popular major villains like the Demon Bull King and the six-eared macaque can transform just like Sun Wukong can, and a bunch of other celestials and beings that can use transformations and stuff like that. So in a game where that seems to be the theme, to assume that King K. Rool couldn't be a transformed monkey, to me is just a weak argument, honestly. We have Pauline literally turned into a little rock man. Anything is possible, okay? I see a lot of people talking about how, well, Void Kong is smaller than King K. Rool, and it doesn't make sense that he could transform into something smaller. Well, the rules of transformation in Journey to the West really don't abide by size. The Demon Bull King, the Macaque, Sun Wukong, they can all transform into something as small as a fly, and it doesn't really matter. So the argument of size just doesn't make any sense to me, and I just don't really agree with that. But it definitely seems like Void Kong could be someone in disguise. If not King K. Rool, then who? Well, Void Kong actually shares quite a few design elements with Kremlings generally, especially Kremling designs that were done by Nintendo in-house during the Payon era of Donkey Kong. The red irises, the V-shaped brow over the eyes, these are things that Void Kong has in common with those designs for Kremlings. He even has little spots on his eyebrows that look like scales. And yeah, I've seen people mention the fact that these could be liver spots and he's old or some shit. But here's the problem with that. One, we see multiple elders in Bananza, and none of them have liver spots like that. Cranky Kong also is in Bananza, and he doesn't have liver spots either. But you know what they all do have? Wrinkles. And the one thing that Void Kong has absolutely nothing of is wrinkles. He doesn't look like he's old at all, but he has those random spots over his eyes. To me, they look like they could be markings for scales. One thing that many people have noted with Void Kong is that he has the colored rings around his eyes in a similar way that Donkey Kong does when he transforms into his Bananza form, which is definitely notable. Another thing that I would like to add to this, though, is that in Donkey Kong's Bananza forms, one of the things that remains relatively the same across all of his different forms are his eyes. DK retains his iconic brow in every single one of his transformations. It's the thing that cements them as you're looking at Donkey Kong. And interestingly enough, this also could go back to Buddhism. In Buddhism, it's believed that your eyes are the true portal to the soul, that looking into one's eyes can show you their true nature. And this definitely seems to be the case with DK's Bananza transformations, because you know it's him by looking at his eyes. The thing with Void Kong is that he also has weird eyes, and he has scale markings over top of his eyes. If this dude is a Kremling in disguise, then it would make sense that his eyes would give him away. And so I definitely wouldn't be surprised at some point in the mid-game or something, Void Kong gets beat, and all of a sudden he poofs and transforms into a Kremling minion of King K. Rool. I mean, they've made brand new Kongs for this game, so why wouldn't they make a brand new Kremling minion for K. Rool if they have the chance? This could be the reveal that Void Kong is working for King K. Rool because he's one of the Kremlings. It would also make more sense as to why Voidco is using Kremling-type enemies in the game, because they're literally being led by a Kremling in disguise. I mean, shit, he doesn't even have to be working for King K. Rool. He could be a Kremling in disguise who's working for himself. Either way, it would fit the theme for Void Kong being a fake and not what he actually seems to be. Of course, there's also the chance that he's not anybody in disguise and he gets ousted for some other reason or beaten some other way, but you see where I'm coming from here. There is a good chance that he could be something that he isn't. And I personally feel that that story element is going to come up at some point in Bananza. Of course, there's also the whole Voidco looks like they come from outer space thing, so maybe he's just an alien. I don't know, maybe he's smuggling antennas underneath those goofy-ass hair spikes or something. Maybe the motherfucker is Zanab, okay? Shout out to Too Crispy. Go check out his video on Banandium gems and how they look similar to the gem bananas that are in Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, because it is pretty mind-blowing, so who knows? Maybe there's a connection there to banana aliens. I don't really know. I'm just spitballing here. Ultimately, King K. Rool doesn't have to be connected to Voidco. He doesn't have to be connected to Void Kong. None of that is integral to Journey to the West theory. The theory still works, even if we get somewhat close to that. But in my opinion, the King K. Rool Bull King theory really doesn't change in the grand scheme of things. No, we haven't seen anything to really kind of give us a blatant answer to whether or not K. Rool is in the game. But here's the thing. Journey to the West is a story that has multiple antagonists. There are multiple villains that show up, a lot of them have their own motivations, and they just so happen to all be going after Sun Wukong or Tan San Zhang. And the thing is that K. Rool can easily show up in Bananza and have his own motivations and not be connected at all to Voidco. Now, one of the newer theories that has been discussed with my fellow Kong compatriots is the fact that Voidco could be mind-controlling King K. Rool. Now, Uncle Al did a phenomenal video about this very recently, so I'm going to link his video down in the description so you can watch that. I'm not going to go back over it here. But basically, the long and short of it is maybe Voidco is mind-controlling K. Rool and using him and his minions for themselves. And that is entirely a possibility. I mean, why not? We do have some evidence of Voidco mind-controlling at least one of the eel teleporters in the game, so they could be mind-controlling others. It's even possible that Void Kong could be mind-controlling Poppy and Grumpy. But there's also the possibility that K. Rool is on his own journey doing his own stuff. He could also be trying to get to the core to make a wish, and he could eventually come into contest with Voidco and Donkey Kong. There's at least one scene that we've seen so far where it looks like the Voidco monkeys are looking up at something in this like weird pink layer that a lot of people have attributed to crocodiles. So who knows? Maybe K. Rool shows up at the midpoint in the game and even Voidco didn't even know he was going to be there, and he becomes another antagonist. Again, this would still match up with Journey to the West because, again, there are a lot of villains in Journey to the West to begin with. And of course, I already covered why K. Rool is the perfect allegory for the Demon Bull King, and I did that in a previous video, so if you want to see that, you have to go check out my first Journey to the West video. But basically, at the end of the day, it seems like Journey to the West theory is actually pretty close. I mean, which is mind-blowing to me, honestly. But ultimately, we're not going to know how close Journey to the West theory is until we have the game in our hands, we can play it ourselves and see what it's all about. I said it once and I say it again, regardless of whether K. Rool is in the game or whatever's going on with Voidco or whatever, I'm hyped for Bananza. I cannot wait. I've been waiting 11 years for this game, and it cannot get here soon enough. I mean, the time is a-ticking. Closer and closer, and my anticipation is just going through the roof. And I want to thank all of you guys so much for sticking with me and watching these videos and just helping my channel grow. I mean, I've grown exponentially during this hype cycle, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to Uncle Al. I'm so grateful to the Con Compendium. I'm so grateful to Sxips, everybody who's helped me along this journey to get this theory out there and really have all these people have eyes on my channel. It's crazy for me, honestly. I've said it before, but I just can't say it enough how insane all of this is. For a small YouTube channel like myself, this is just like a game changer. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm extremely excited for the future. I'm extremely excited to keep sharing theories with you guys, whether it be about Donkey Kong or Mario or whatever. I'm into a lot of games, so I could be talking about way more, but obviously DK is going to be a huge part of this channel all the time. It's my favorite series of all time, and I just can't wait for Bananza to come out because the hype just doesn't end, baby, okay? Even when Bananza is out and we're playing it, there's going to be so much lore to talk about. There's going to be so many things to say because there's so much we don't know. I mean, that's the craziest part. There is so much shit that we don't know about Bananza. And Nintendo is clearly hiding stuff from us, which, again, let's just go back to the whole thing of, you know, people who feel down and out that K. Rool is not in this game. I mean, look at what they did with Odd Rock. Okay, they've hid so much shit from us. It would not surprise me in the least if something as big as K. Rool is still being hidden. And I know some people are getting sick and tired of the K. Rool discussion, but come on, dude. He's the main villain of his series. Okay, he's one of the biggest characters added to Smash Ultimate. People want to know. It's something that's worth talking about, and people want to talk about it. So, of course, it's going to take over a lot of the discussion. But, I mean, that's just the way it is. But again, there's just so much we do not know about this game, and I cannot wait to find out where the story goes. Why is Pauline doing what she's doing? Why is she a kid? Who knows? I don't know. But I can't wait to find out. And I hope that you'll be along with me for the ride, because I keep on planning to pump out Donkey Kong related videos and other fun projects. So thanks again. Obviously, this is going to be my last Bananza theory video before the game releases. It's not going to be the last one ever because there's going to be, like I said, more to talk about. But, you know, we're creeping up on that release date, so it's going to be the last one before then. Like I said, I'm going to have links in my description for all of my fellow Kong YouTubers' videos, so you can go check them out. If you want to talk to me about Bananza outside of here, I mean, you can join my community on YouTube or you can join my Discord chat. Either way, feel free to reach out. We'll talk about whatever you want. Can't wait to geek out over Donkey Kong with all you guys in the comments. Either way, have a great day and I'll see you in the next video.